Hey everybody, welcome back to the Whiskey Edition. My name is Rob. Appreciate you being here on this prior to a long weekend. Though you probably wouldn't know because you could watch this anytime. But this is leading into Memorial Day weekend. And what I have in front of me are not 5 whiskeys you probably don't need in your bar, but they all have one thing in common. These 5 beers. Well, I guess they're not all beers. These 5 drinks, these 5 summer refreshing drinks that are found in many coolers across the country, all have one thing in common. But first, let's take a look at them, not in detail. Pabst Blue Ribbon, pretty standard. Coors Light from somewhere, Molson Coors, Rocky Mountain Coors, that's what I grew up with. Twisted Tea, my mom's favorite. Ugh. A Dogfish Head 90-minute IPA, Imperial IPA, and a Maui Brewing Company Bikini Blonde. You're saying, Rob, other than being beer and one oddball malt beer, this thing, I think this is malt beverage. What could they possibly all have in common other than maybe some hops and water and not very high ABV? What could these 5 refreshing summer drinks have in common? They all have an associated whiskey with their name. Let's take a look at them. Probably a little cut magic there to get to the 5 whiskeys you definitely, well, I don't want to say that. You may or may not need on your bar this summer. So the Pabst, the Coors, Twisted Tea, Dogfish Head, and Kupu, which is the Maui Brewing Company line. I was going to just taste through these, not blindly because they're all different colors. I'd be able to figure it out in this guy. That's probably gonna be pretty obvious. But I'll tell you a little bit about each one before we get into them, and then I'll just go right into them. I'll taste them and see which one of these would be the better to, follow up with. Maybe it's sister, brother, cousin beer, or in this case, malted beverage. Kupu. This is distilled on the island of Maui at the Maui Brewing Company distillery. It says it's locally crafted on Maui, and it's 88 proof, 44% alcohol. I read on the label on the side that it is aged in new oak barrels, and it is a small batch, and it's island distilled in Kihei, and that's where the brewing company is. When I got this bottle, they pointed through the window where the still was, and I said, can I take a tour? And they said, you have to sign up, and we're all full. And it was during COVID, so couldn't do any of that. So I believe them, and maybe the next time I get there, I'll make an effort to go on that tour. The next is Dogfish Head. I don't know much about this. I saw it and I went, I think they make a beer, and they have it. I've had them. They're typically IPAs, so they got a lot of kick to them. I thought this was rather interesting. I'm going to read the back. In winemaking, the use of toasted and light char oak barrels is preferred to allow the liquid to mature and retain the delicate flavors of the grape. We have chosen the same philosophy in the barrels we selected to age the straight whiskey. The result is delicately aged, reliably smooth, and captures the nuances of the malted barley blend. I do not know if these were aged in former wine barrels. Kind of says that. But 2 years old, distilled from grain at the Dogfish Head Distilling Company in Milton, Delaware. I read that, and to me it says it's distilled by Dogfish Head at their facility, not sourced and put in their facility. So these two aren't that way. This guy is produced by the Twisted Tea Distilling Company, Frankfort, Kentucky. And we know of others that are distilled in Frankfort. Take everything you know about whiskey and toss it out the window. Which you're saying, yeah, Rob, that's not going to be a whole bunch. Made with real brewed tea, We took the same great taste of Twisted Tea hard iced tea and reimagined it as a sweet and smooth flavored spirit with hints of lemon. Enjoy it straight up as a shot or add it to your favorite mixer. We don't judge. And as we do say in the whiskey community, drink your drink. This, on the other hand, might get tossed also. But it's in the lineup because why not? This is the Barman 1873 bourbon, a blend of straight bourbon whiskeys. It's a limited release from Coors Whiskey Company, Bardstown, Kentucky. There's no other details, there's no other aging. I couldn't find any more information on it other than it's distilled from grain and malt in Bardstown, Kentucky at the Coors Whiskey Company. They also make Five Trail. I don't have a bottle of Five Trail. I've ran across this one. The website says it's out in June of 2023. That's in a few days, so this is not like a sample bottle. I got it then. This guy is the Pabst Blue Ribbon Whiskey, the finest Blue Ribbon Standard. This has a mash bill on it. What they've done is very interesting with this. 52% corn, 27% malted barley, 17% wheat, 4% rye, 80 proof, aged 5 seconds. So what I think is interesting about this is, one, they give you the actual mash bill. That's cool. And two, they have actually aged it. And I heard that it's by just pouring it through the barrel. It doesn't say how long it has to be in the barrel, but it's poured through the barrel. So technically, I guess, it's a whiskey. So I'll open these up, I'll glass them up, come back, we'll do a little quick try through them, and I'll pick the best of the 5 that you probably shouldn't have on your bar this summer. All right, got them all poured out. As you can see, I didn't have enough Glencairns of the exact same ones to even do a comparison, and then the Pabst would throw it off anyway. So we'll just go down the line. I forgot to mention, this is a whopping 65 proof. Yes, 65 proof. So not a high proof, and it would have probably been pretty obvious which that one was. So we'll just go by taste. I'll do it real quick. I want to keep everybody for rushing out to buy the least favorite of the top 5 whiskeys you don't want for the summer. Oh. Ugh. Well, I'm going to go back through them real quick, check, see if anything else comes out of them. Bread. Okay. Okay, I've gone through them all. This one's last. The tea, but we'll get to that in a second. I'm gonna kind of do a Thai, and then let's do it kind of like this, believe it or not. So, how would I rank these? And it's not because I'm a huge Coors fan or a Coors Light fan, and I grew up on Coors and I drink Coors. I always have Coors on hand. It had the most complexity of, well, of all of them. Maybe that's because of its source. Maybe if it is actually something out of Bardstown Distillery, maybe, I don't know. And while I couldn't pick out exactly what was going on, it may be because it's what it is. Didn't have a lot on the nose, a little bit nutty, got a little bit of a chocolate, kind of chocolate on the back end out of it. It stuck around a lot longer on the palate, but it did have the most flavor of all of them. I put the Pabst second, not because it's Pabst Blue Ribbon and the American type beer. It's surprisingly smooth, and I was trying to think, what is that taste? I couldn't quite put my finger on it. Surprisingly smooth for something that's aged 5 seconds. It kind of tasted like bread, if you like bread. I'm not saying add any butter to it to get it bread butter, but you know, maybe as a mixer or something, it wasn't super off-putting. And neither were these two. Neither was the Kupu or the Dogfish Head. So these are coming from kind of distilleries that are on site at the breweries. I might put the Dogfish Head a little bit lower because I think if it's aged in the former wine barrels for not very long, and they called them grapes, so they didn't say they didn't say exactly what barrel they were aging it in, if it was just a grape barrel or if it was a former wine barrel. It just kind of has it does have kind of an odd taste to it. It's and it's probably the wine barrel. I mean, it wasn't awful, it wasn't too bad, but winey and a little herbal. And then but the Kupu kind of has an island smell to it. That's probably the best way I can put it, is an island smell. So it's not too bad either. So these are all really pretty close. I mean, you know, we can put them like this. Obviously none of them made Fred's top 100, and I didn't have them for that. The Twisted Tea. When I told my mom about it, she goes, "Oh, that sounds gross." And I'm like, she ain't far off, and that's what she drinks on a regular basis, is the Twisted Tea malt beverage. This is just a warm, gross glass of tea with a little socket to you. It sticks to your mouth, and the only thing I can say is, if it had a lot of ice in it. I obviously don't have any ice here. I've got a whole fridge full of ice. I could put it on there, but I am not sure I really want to go back to the well with it. It is probably as close to a drain pour as a lot of the others that I've had that are drain pours. I think actually the Willet Rye, family rye. Ugh, yep. But I'll keep it because, you know, maybe it'll open up and I can use it for a mixer or use it in tea, or somebody says, "Do I have any tea?" I can say, "Well, if I got something for you," and I'm not gonna have the Twisted Tea. I'll save that for a guest too. So, in summary and conclusion of this, the 5 whiskeys to not necessarily have on your bar over the summer, if you were to have them, the Kupu and the Kupu's tough to find. I had to bring that back from Hawaii. The Pabst is pretty regular. You've seen it around. It's probably been intriguing. I recommend, if you can find it on sale, get a bottle of it just to have to try it. It's not bad. I mean, it's an odd taste for a clear whiskey, and I'm going to put it in with some others here someday that I've been accumulating. It's going to be a big mess of clears. And then the Barman 1873, probably not the best, well, definitely not the best whiskey you could buy, but of these 5, I don't include this one, of these 4.5, it's the most complex of all of them. So it's probably not a good, it's probably not a bad sipper after a hard day's work, and maybe pair it with a Coors Banquet beer or a Coors Light, which is what I would do. So if I were to pick of the 5 beverages that I have in the refrigerator to accompany this, I would pick the Coors Light to go with that, the Dogfish Head with the Dogfish Head, the Maui Brewing Blonde, and then the Pabst Blue Ribbon with this. Do a Boilermaker, or maybe a what do they call that? Where you drop the shot in it, and maybe they pair very well. A Twisted Tea? No thanks. Hey, like, share, subscribe. Want to put a shout out to Mark at Northwest Bourbon. He's been doing a lot for the local whiskey scene here in Washington State. Been doing a lot of local distillery YouTubes. I recommend checking them out, typically on Thursday evening. A lot of fun. Independent Joe at Independent Joe, he's been helping him out as a wrench. Charred and Twisted's been in there helping him out also. Kira and David at Shelf Turds have just did a huge benefit for her dad. That was a lot of fun to watch. Recommend going back and checking that live stream out and donating to the cause if you so feel like it. And then Marvin, Whiskey Wine 101. So hey, appreciate everybody sticking around. It's been kind of an odd thing. I wanted to get this out for Memorial Day because you never know who's going to stop by. So pour a couple of glasses of the 5 that you would not normally have on your bar. Have a very safe Memorial Day weekend. Okay, well, there you have it. Ugh. Oh. Oh, God. It's even worse when you know what's coming. Ah.